When I married Mark, I knew I was signing up for a life filled with more than just love. I was joining a family. His son, Jake, was 13 at the time, quiet, thoughtful, and a little distant. Mark and I met a few years after his divorce, and I took my time easing into Jake's life. It wasn't easy. He was guarded, understandably so, but I respected his space and waited for him to come around. Eventually, over shared breakfasts and late-night video game marathons, Jake started to open up to me. Slowly, we formed a bond that felt natural, almost like we were always meant to be in each other's lives. Fast forward 3 years and Jake was 16, tall and lean like his father, with his mother's sharp cheekbones and a head full of shaggy brown hair that he constantly brushed out of his eyes. Life had fallen into a rhythm. School, homework, the occasional movie night. But as Jake got older, I noticed something had changed. He started spending more time in his room. His grades dropped slightly, not enough to alarm Mark, but I noticed. The conversations we used to have were replaced by short, distracted responses. And more than once, I caught him looking defeated, as if the weight of something was too much to carry. I decided I'd wait and watch a little longer before stepping in. One Friday evening, while Mark was away on a business trip, I came home early from work. The house was quiet. I called for Jake but didn't get a response. I knocked on his door gently before opening it. He wasn't there. His backpack was on the floor, his phone was buzzing on the desk, and his shoes were still by the door. I walked through the house and found him sitting in the backyard, head in his hands, his shoulders slumped like he'd just run a marathon. I sat down beside him and didn't say a word. Sometimes silence speaks louder than anything. After a few minutes he sighed and said, "I messed up, Laura." I looked at him gently. "Okay. Let's talk about it." Jake hesitated, then finally looked me in the eyes. "I failed 2 tests. Mr. Carver said I might not pass this semester if I don't turn it around. I didn't tell Dad. I didn't want to disappoint him." His voice cracked just slightly at the end, and my heart broke. He wasn't just upset, he was ashamed. "Jake," I said, placing a hand on his shoulder, "you're not a failure because you failed a test. You're human. And it's okay to ask for help. I didn't want you to think I was dumb. You're not dumb. You're overwhelmed. That's different." We sat there a while longer. I didn't push him. He talked more about how school felt harder lately, how he couldn't concentrate, how he felt pressure to be perfect, even when no one said it out loud. I realized this was more than just grades. It was stress, anxiety, maybe even some self-doubt that had been building for a while. That weekend, we made a plan. I promised not to tell Mark right away, giving Jake a chance to get ahead of the situation. We worked out a study schedule. I reached out to his teachers and arranged tutoring, quietly, in a way that respected his independence. I even sat down with him a few nights a week to help with reading assignments or quiz him before a test. Slowly but surely, I saw changes. Not just in his grades, but in Jake himself. He was smiling more. He came out of his room on his own. He even started talking to me again, not just about school, but about his favorite shows, his dream of going into game design, even a girl in his math class he thought was cute but didn't know how to talk to. One night, while we were cleaning up after dinner, he said, "Thanks for not freaking out when I told you. You could have yelled. Or told Dad. But you didn't." I gave him a half smile. "I figured you had enough pressure. You didn't need another adult breathing down your neck. I just wanted to help." And I did. But I also realized something important. Jake didn't just need a stepmom who made sure he brushed his teeth or did his chores. He needed someone who saw through the armor, who noticed the small signs, who knew when to sit quietly beside him and when to speak up. Eventually, Jake decided to tell Mark on his own. It was a quiet Sunday morning. I was making pancakes when Jake walked into the kitchen and said, "Dad, can we talk?" Mark looked surprised, but nodded. They sat at the table for a long time. I stayed back, pretending not to listen even though every part of me wanted to lean in. When it was over, Mark gave Jake a long hug. Later, he came up to me and said, "Thank you." I didn't even realize he was struggling. He didn't want to disappoint you. He never could. Jake passed the semester. Barely, but he did. And more than that, he gained confidence. The next school year, he joined the AV club. He started building his own computer. He even helped tutor a younger student who was struggling in algebra. One evening, while we were eating dinner, Jake said, "I want to do something in tech, maybe coding." "Think that's crazy?" I smiled. "Not at all. I think it's perfect." I still remember the moment I first saw that broken look in his eyes, the slumped shoulders, the silence, the fear of letting people down. And I remember the choice I made, to listen instead of lecture, to support instead of scold. That was the moment I truly became more than just his stepmom. I became someone he trusted, someone who could help him face the problems he was too afraid to say out loud. Life didn't magically get easier after that. There were still rough days, bad test scores, awkward conversations, and moments where we clashed. But the difference now was that Jake knew he didn't have to face it alone. He knew that no matter what, someone had his back. Years later, when he graduated high school, we stood in the front row, clapping like proud maniacs. Jake walked across the stage with his cap slightly tilted, his grin wide. After the ceremony, he pulled me into a hug and said, "I wouldn't have made it here without you." "You would have," I said, swallowing a lump in my throat. "But I'm glad I got to be part of the journey." In a way, his big problem all those years ago wasn't just about failing grades. It was about feeling lost and unseen. And I knew how to handle it, not because I had a magic solution, but because I showed up, I listened, and I didn't give up on him. That's what family does.